Hello, it's time for the Greek of the week. And for the Greek of the week this week, we're going to look at Hebrews 4, verses 14 and 15. These are very pivotal verses in Hebrews. In a sense, they start the middle section of Hebrews, and the middle section of Hebrews is the central teaching section of Hebrews. Now, also the central exhortation of Hebrews is in these next few chapters also. But the thread of the high priesthood of Christ really gets going in earnest with verse 14 here. And you see this verse, there's an inclusio between 4:14 through 16 and 10:25 and following. They're like in between these is the central high priestly stuff. All right, well, let's get into the Greek, shall we? Ekontes un archearea megan dialeluthota tus uranus. Okay, therefore, so this is a post-positive. It always comes at least second, but we often translate it first. It indicates a causation. Given what has come before, logically, therefore, what comes next follows. All right, ekontes, this is a participle. My aunt is an active participle. And then S is a nominative plural ending. In this case, it's masculine plural. There's no way to know that from form, just I know that from the context. Echo is the word. So this is a present, nothing done to the stem, present active participle, nominative masculine plural from echo. Therefore, having a great high priest. All right. Now, participles can be used in two or three different ways, or four. They can be used adjectivally to tell you something about a noun or a pronoun. This one is being used adverbially. So it's telling you something about the main verb, which we'll get to in a second. I believe that this is a causal use of the participle. So if it's adverbial, telling you about the main verb, there are a number of different nuances it can have. One of them is causal. And so you could actually translate this, therefore, since we have, or because we have, again, goes back to that causation. Since we have a great high priest, dialeluthota tus uranus, having passed through the heavens. Now, this is probably telling us about high priest. You can see it has a similar ending. This is a masculine accusative singular ending, third declension ending. So therefore, having what? Having a high priest, and that high priest as having passed through the skies. So dialeluthota, it is a participle. I don't have a nice cliche that works here because the aunt that I would want to have, the new, is not there. And to say my aunt is an active participle, that doesn't make any sense. But it is a perfect active participle, accusative, masculine singular from diurkamai. And alelutha is the irregular perfect of urkamai. I'm sorry, I just have it memorized. It does have this kind of lambda that got beside itself. So there might have been, it feels kind of perfect to me, and it is perfect. And the perfect participle does not have the unt of my aunt is an active participle. So this is a perfect active participle, accusative, masculine singular from diurkamai, having passed through, and he still is. So he not only passed through the heavens as he ascended to the right hand of God, but he's still there. He passed and he's stuck with it. He's staying with this lordship thing. So I think this is being, even though there's no article on dialeluthota, I think it is probably adjectival. It's telling us about this high priest, a high priest. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who, I'm going to use who because I'm thinking it's telling us about high priest, a great high priest who has passed through the skies. Remember, they didn't make a distinction between heavens and skies the way we would. What we call heaven is just the highest sky for them in their worldview, in their cosmology, their way of thinking about it. Remember, the Bible was revealed to real people who had real paradigms and real worldviews. It wasn't revealed in some bubble that was completely and utterly different from the way they talked and thought. God met them where they were and moved them from there. So therefore, having a great high priest who has passed through the skies. Who is this high priest, you say? Well, it is Yesun ton huion tu theou, Jesus, the Son of God. That's who it is. That's who this great high priest is. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the skies, Jesus, the Son of God, kratomen, did I already pronounce this? Yesun ton huion tu theou, kratomen tes homologios. Let us hold fast the confession. So this is a hortatory subjunctive, a let us subjunctive. It is a first person plural with a fried connecting vowel. So I think the word is kratao, I think, or krateo. No, it has to be kratoo. Sorry, it has to be kratoo because the omicron of the contract verb has lengthened to an omega. It would lengthen differently if it was one of those others I said. So this is kratoo. It is a present active subjunctive first plural. I know it's present because nothing is changed of the core vowel, core word. So it may have a connotation of let us be holding fast. Let's keep holding fast. Probably that wouldn't be a horrible translation. Let us keep holding fast, because the present tense is a sense of something that's more ongoing in flavor. Okay, and that's what, because we have a great high priest, therefore let us hold fast. So subjunctive. The confession. This verb kratoo apparently takes a genitive. We call it a genitive root idea, and it's just what Greek does. This Greek word does. It takes a genitive instead of an accusative object. What is the confession? Some debate. Maybe Jesus is the Son of God could be the confession. We saw something like this mentioned in chapter 3 about the confession. So perhaps Jesus is the Son of God is the confession, if the author of Hebrews has a specific confession in mind. Probably does, I would guess. If you're Protestant like me, low church Protestant, you wouldn't have thought of there being a confession, because we don't really confess in my church growing up. But I'm guessing this was an actual confession. All right, so let us hold fast the confession, for not do we have a high priest not being able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Let me go ahead and bring the English up there. For we do not, for is another postpositive like un. It doesn't come first, but we translate it first. For not do we have a high priest, same form, accusative, masculine, singular, who is not able. Again, I think even though there's no article on dunomenon, I do think that this is probably a adjectival participle, again, telling us about high priest. We do not have a high priest who, that's the adjectival bit, is not able. Let me pronounce the Greek before I forget. Ekomen archerea me dunomenon sympathesai tais atheneis hemon. Tais atheneis hemon. For we do not have a high priest who is not able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Notice that sympathesai sounds like sympathy, right? This is a loan word from Greek, to suffer with us, to feel with us, to be affected with us. By the way, it's a fallacy to break up the component parts into and say this is what it means, but it does work in this particular case a bit. I always call that breaking apart of words illustrative. It's not necessarily substantive. It illustrates. It can illustrate, but it is the etymological fallacy to in some way think that the etymology of a word dictates what it means. That's a fallacy. Anyway, dunomenon, men are passive participles. This one actually is deponent because it's from dunamai. Amai, it's deponent. But it's present because there's nothing done to the basic stem. So it's a present middle deponent participle, accusative masculine singular from dunamai, being able. And may is the form of not used with a participle. U is the form of not used with a finite verb, a normal verb. Okay, for we do not have a high priest not being able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Sympathesai, 6 out of the 7 infinitive forms end in I, and this is one of them. So this is an infinitive. Sigma alpha tells me it's an aorist active infinitive from sympatheo. Sympatheo. You can hear sympathy, can't you? For we do not have a high priest who is not able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Pepe rasmenon de kai panta kath homoiteta choris hamartias. But again, here's our third post-positive. We had un, we had gar, we had de. These are all post-positive. They're procrastinators. They don't come where they're supposed to. Usually they're second. But having been tempted in every way, according to the likeness of us, without sin. This is the great verse that tells us that Jesus was tempted like we are, but he's without sin. Very important theological verse in that respect. So Pepe rasmenon, the little reduplication on the front has me thinking this is perfect. And men are passive participles, so I'm thinking perfect passive participle. And notice that the menon is shoved right on the stem. There's no connecting vowel here. Not like, let's see, where we saw another participle here, like ekontes. There we have a nice little omicron cushion, little cushion. Where else did we have? Or here, amenon, nice little vowel cushion between consonants and consonants. But when the ending is shoved right on the stem, this is from perazzo, that's the perfect Miller passive participle, perfect Miller passive. So this is a perfect Miller passive participle from perazzo. And because I'm going to go with just passive, but having been, well, it's not going to be both. It's going to be one or the other. But having been tempted, and that stands. His having been temptedness stands, interestingly enough, which I think, I don't want to overread this, but it may suggest that he's still tempted. Are you facing a temptation today? Jesus is still having been tempted. Jesus stands having been tempted. Therefore, he stands ready to help in your time of need. But having been tempted according to everything, according to the likeness of us, without sin. So I shortened it. Ray everything in the ray likeness. I did that so I could fit it all in one line. But basically, he was tempted in every way, in the similar way that we are. Jesus didn't have a different kind of temptation that we have. The early church considered it a heresy to say, well, Jesus' temptation was nothing. I mean, he was God, right? I mean, okay, he was tempted, but it was easy. It was nothing. I think Hebrews wants us, and I think the church wants us theologically. It is theologically correct to recognize that it was a real temptation. There was real. It was a substantial temptation. It wasn't a slough off temptation. It was a real temptation that Jesus experienced in every way, like us, but without sin. Okay, well, that'll do it today, won't it? This has been the Greek of the week. Of course, I should have gone on to the next verse, which completes this transition piece. It's a 3-verse transition piece. Therefore, since we have a high priest who has passed through the skies, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we don't have a high priest who is not able to sympathize with our weaknesses, but he was tempted, having been tempted in every way, according to the likeness of our temptation, yet he was without sin. Therefore, let us go with boldness. Let us proceed with boldness to the throne of grace and ask for help in our time of need, because he's been there. He understands. He wants to help. Somebody who has gone through something wants to help. If you've had COVID and somebody else has COVID, you want to help. Or if someone you love have COVID, and someone else has, you want to help them. You want to help them because you understand what they're going through. At least if you're a good person, you want to help. And so Jesus wants to help us. He's been there and he's been through it. Well, this has been the Greek of the week.